What is up, fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with Hardwood Knox's, I think, 10th podcast in 8 days, Mr. Grant Hughes. So, again, I know people don't like to hear this at the top of podcasts. Just subscribe or recommend us to people. Continue to flood the comments on YouTube. Subscribe, Apple, Spotify, the whole nine, wherever you get your pods. We appreciate it. Let's continue to grow. I have merch designs, new drops, new place for when we hit 5K subscribers on YouTube. Not finished yet. I need to run them by Grant as well. And I'm hoping my wife, who's a graphic designer, will gussy them up and maybe just redo them entirely when she sees the concepts. So subscribe. Help us continue to grow. We appreciate all the support. And we're putting out a lot of fucking content, none of which is behind a paywall. I'm going to pat ourselves on the back here, including some creative podcast titles that Grant and I will collab on behind the scenes. 2024 NBA Draft Reaction Day 1. There will be no 2 draft reaction from us unless something major happens. But before we get into it, and we have an interesting exercise to do. Grant has not watched the NBA draft. So we're going to go through like this first top 10 picks or lottery picks to see how many he gets right. If there was a transaction involving them, and spoiler alert, Grant, there were 2 in the lottery. We will get into the nuances of that and some other stuff, other takeaways, other transactions. But first and foremost, the actual question, and I think it's especially prescient now given the context. And this was your idea, so you better kill it. Like, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm actually really sincerely excited, mostly because what I think has happened is I tricked you into letting me be even lazier than usual and not watch the draft and thereby create more work for you, because not only you have to watch it, you have to log the picks and present me with, oh, this is the other thing. I didn't tell you about this either. I floated this in Discord. It would be cool if you could make up things that did not happen in the lottery tonight and see if I can suss out whether that's bullshit or not. Thought that would be a fun wrinkle.
I will keep that dutifully in mind.
More work for you. So you're welcome.
If I can do anything to fuck with you, like that, I don't view as more work. I just view that as sort of my life's calling.
It's your passion.
Yeah. So, look. Let's get into it. So we'll begin with, we'll go through any transactions. There was news that broke. Maybe there's news. We're starting before the first round is over. Technically, we're on pick, I think 22. The Nuggets, the Suns just went.
Oh, all right. Okay. Unless that was your first trick, I think I know something happened.
So let's begin. The number 1 pick, Grant, and we'll get into analyze each one. Grant, who did the Atlanta Hawks take?
I think they took Zaccharie Risacher. Am I correct?
You're 0 for 1 already. This is a rough start for you.
No way, really?
They took Zaccharie Risacher.
Okay, see, you're going to be able to get me so easily because I'm not going to know.
We talked about this a little bit. We expected it to be the pick. I think it was probably, I don't know if it's the right, I'm higher on Alex Sarr, but like if you view it as you want Trae Young there and you're high on Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Johnson, I think it was close enough to go with Zaccharie Risacher. I will say, before I throw it to you, I like him a lot better on this roster if you have Murray and Trae Young, as opposed to if you only have one of them.
Yeah, I agree. I look, there are plenty of smart draft people that had him number 1. There were several that had him way down from number 1. And to me, I think I read something from John Hollinger today probably, and he phrased it as it's kind of wild to take wing depth as a number 1 overall pick, which is like the pessimist view of what Risacher might be, just because not a dynamite athlete, good shooter, not spectacular, good defender, not has good court sense, all this stuff, but nothing that screams like superstar franchise cornerstone upside. So that's why it feels a little underwhelming to me. But all these guys, it's just they're all mystery boxes. But yeah, okay. So 1 for 1, I feel good about that.
That felt like a given. Who did the Washington Wizards select at number 2?
So this, I feel even more confident. That's got to be Alex Sarr.
Yeah, that was the pick. He wouldn't even work out for Atlanta.
Right.
We identified when we go listen to our offseason look aheads, there's still most of the stuff is still germane. We identified their 2 biggest needs, even though it's just general talent infusion, as go get a big of the future, maybe go get a point guard of the future. I like Alex Sarr a lot. He would have been higher up than Zaccharie Risacher for me. I'm very curious to see, though, if you don't have Tyus Jones there, and we know for a fact that you do have Malcolm Brogdon there right now. You knew about that transaction. It happened before the draft. So we can get into that. a little bit, but I think we should maybe wait until we get to the Blazers before we talk about the transaction.
Okay.
But you did get Malcolm Brogdon. So if your intent is to keep him, having someone to help set up Sarr is good. But even then, it's like Tyus Jones would be better because he's more of that floor general type, even though maybe he doesn't have a ton of like levels once he's getting in to the lane. And so now you've given up Avdija, kind of one of your other like playmaker types. Is he going to have a problem getting offense? Because there's some self-creation, but it's mostly open floor, open space stuff, and the handle's not tight enough yet. So I'm curious to see what he looks like from on the offensive end next year, especially if they turn around. Let's say they lose Tyus Jones, and then they could still just trade Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, what percentage chance do you think, because they will trade Brogdon, they sort of, I assume that's why they did it. Like, are they getting a first for him? Like, I mean, because if they do, then the Avdija trade makes a little more sense to me, which I still kind of hate it for. I just like, you and I are both like in the bag for Avdija, and maybe that's coloring this a little bit, but the return they got just doesn't, I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just spoiler alert. The Blazers draft is just like, that's why I want to save whatever they're doing. I don't want to be super low because then we're gonna have to end up eating crow on certain things. But spoiler alert confused the hell out of me. So pick number 3, Grant. I think this is where stuff will start to get interesting. Who do you think the Rockets take?
I think I wish that they hadn't, because I want to see him fall to the Spurs. But I think that the Rockets took Reed Sheppard. Am I right?
They did. And I think that's honestly a great fit for them too, because they need sort of a high volume shooter and they can insulate him defensively, much like the Spurs could have with Wemby, even though Şengün is there. But it's like when you have so many guys who they don't need to be ball dominant, but like Şengün and Van Fleet and Ahmed Thompson who prefer to operate on ball, getting someone like Reed Sheppard feels just absolutely perfect. I am curious because this team will have somewhat immediate expectations, but he's also like, they have all those Phoenix Suns picks. They still have like the one net swap. They have some of their own picks. They have draft picks. If you were to go and make an offer for someone, I don't know who becomes available. Like Reed Sheppard was one of my favorite players of this draft based off his archetype. So if he stays in Houston, I actually do expect him to play a fair amount as a rookie, even though it's tough with Jalen Green and Cam Whitmore there. But I almost wish he went to another team because I feel like he would have more runway and a bigger role right out of the gate.
I was kind of hoping the reason I like, well, just because him and Wemby seems cool, just objectively, but I was hoping he'd go somewhere where it's like, we're going to just see if you can be the point guard full time, for us. And like having Van Vliet, having Jalen Green on the ball a little bit, like Şengün, like you said, Şengün being a playmaker, like, oh darn, the guy who hit 50% of his threes is just going to be relegated to like an off ball role a little bit more. I think that's still a pretty good result, but I would have been more excited if I thought Sheppard was someplace where we would test the theory that maybe he can just be your point guard, which like, I don't know what the results of that are going to be. It's an iffy proposition, but like, how exciting is that if he can be that, because then that opens up so many other roster building opportunities. You could put like 3 combo forward / wings around him. And then that gets a lot more exciting, but hey, 3 for 3, pretty good.
I wonder if you'll get this. Who did the Spurs take at number 4? I am letting you know that the Spurs kept the number 4 pick. Go
yeah. Okay. So you could have got me and said they traded it. Okay. I really hope it's not Donovan Clingan. So I'm going to say it's Modest Buzelis.
That is incorrect.
Okay. Who is it?
They took Stephon Castle.
Oh, wow. So they think he's going to be a point guard, like for sure then. Because that's,
yeah. And I mean, the idea of his defense next to Wemby's is like, and then you have Vassell sprinkled in there. That's fucking terrifying if you're opposing offenses. And he is I do value his passing. I'm just wondering, like, we still have to wonder about, okay, what does he end up in terms of efficiency? So how defense is going to treat him out of the gate. And then is he better? Like long term, yes, you bet on Stephon Castle over Trey Jones, but like, it still feels like you need a playmaking bump from Trey Jones because is Stephon Castle going to be that out of the gate?
Yeah, I think like I understand it. It's the defense, it's the athleticism, it's the good court sense. It's just, man, the shot. Like the shot is just, if he can't, the Spurs have turned guys into shooters. So I don't know, as good a place to develop as anywhere. I guess I sort of get it on the upside theory of like, if he could become a competent shooter, then he's got a lot of other stuff you'd want in a star guard. But and like, I don't know. See, I guess I forgot who I heard. I think Jonathan Givony was talking about like just A+ across the board, like character wise for him. So maybe that matters too, if you're just trying to create a culture there. So don't hate it, but pretty surprised.
I mean, you're not done with the surprises, my friend. I will say that I think, yeah, let's keep going. So at number 5, the Pistons did keep it. Who did they take?
I'm a little disappointed no one has traded around here. Did the Pistons take Clingan?
No.
Oh.
Do you want to take another stab?
I mean, I would guess Buzelis, but I don't want to just see.
You're going to like the pick, though, because I liked the pick. Ron Holland.
They did it? Oh, yeah. Wow. That's exciting.
People were making Orlando Magic jokes like they're just stockpiling on wings that can't shoot. But they have Fred Vince in there now, who's not they don't have Monty Williams anymore. They added him to Monty Williams' staff and then fired Monty Williams. That's a little ironic. Awkward. But I feel like I trust, but I said this about Sarr Thompson, specifically in comparison to Amen Thompson. I don't know that I'm necessarily wrong just yet. I said, I trust Sarr to develop a jumper more than Amen Thompson. And after watching Sarr Thompson last year, I don't know if I trust either of these guys to develop.
Right.
But I trust Ron Holland when you're kind of looking at it. And then everything else that he does feels like he could be connective tissue on the offensive end and giving you a ton of defense. And I like the bet here where it's let's just surround. I mean, or let's just stop. Okay, bigger wings. Like Cade Cunningham's an actual playmaker. And you have a Sarr Thompson, Ron Holland, who can be connective guys on that end too. So these aren't, yes, you have some shooting question marks. Even Cade Cunningham, although I trust the step back from Cade Cunningham, I still am if you want to go through all the young guys, I'm still lowest on Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey long-term than Sarr Thompson. I like Ron Holland better. I kind of just like the bet here.
I really do too. And a lot of that is Wasserman talking us into, telling us that Ron Holland was the number one guy. And then you watch him I don't think Ron Holland's jumper is anywhere near as busted as either of the Thompsons, just mechanics wise. His misses are bad. He, a bunch of turnovers. That G League Ignite team was a joke though. So I just look at the size, the athleticism, the fact that he plays really hard. I like the theory of Detroit having a couple guys in Thompson now and Holland who maybe you're trying to establish some kind of early identity of we are going to be really unfun to play against. At least we're going to put a bunch of crazy athleticism on the floor defensively. And I also like the idea that clearly Detroit did not draft for fit, because his fit in theory with Thompson is you're going to have 2 wings that can't shoot. That seems like a bad way to go, but I just like the maximum talent play. I think that's a cool pick.
I don't want to call it one of the stupidest trades just happened, but it's just anyway, we will
Can you tell me what it was without spoiling stuff?
I just don't think it's something we have to tackle. And I'm not going to take you through pick number 25. The Knicks traded number 24 to the Wizards, and I think they got number 26. So they have 25 and 26 as of right now. And they got number 51. So I guess to move up, you pick up an extra second. And if you're the Knicks, you lower your cap hold, which we'll get into the OG Anunoby. And we haven't talked on Hardwood Knocks since the Mikal Bridges of it all. But let's keep it moving here. We're on to pick number 6. That would be... I don't want to spoil it. I was about to spoil it. Who did the Hornets take, Grant? So you're not going to get this one. Sorry.
I just hope it's not like Dillingham, just because that doesn't make any sense. They took Tidjane Salaun.
Holy fuck. Did you cheat?
No, I'm not. I didn't.
Holy shit.
Let's go.
You got it. I did not think you were going to get that one.
Well, I kept throwing out Buzelis and Clingan, so I had to pivot. That was a pure luck. Okay. What was the do you is there something about him that you're okay, this makes a lot of sense? It was it's not a guard. It doesn't make sense to be a guard. It doesn't make sense to be a center so much. And I'd said Clingan twice in a row. So there's I don't know who's kind of a slight reach at one of the forward spots. And that's the best I could do with Holland off the board.
He did make 75 threes in 54 games. And so he's drawn a lot of comps to Obi Toppin, which I feel like he might have a little bit more ball skills than Obi Toppin there. But if you're just going to get a dude who's 6'9" and can stretch the floor around Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, especially if you were on a run with more of a traditional big, which they don't have to. You could just run Grant. Now they just have 2 stretchy bigs. I know Grant Williams is technically small, so I don't hate the pick. But I might have gone with a Buzelis in that spot for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have said Buzelis if I hadn't used him already. So, but now I might have to go back to the well.
Pick number 7, Blazers.
Is this Buzelis? I'm gonna go Buzelis here.
Wrong. This is the Donovan Clingan spot, and now we can get into the what the fuck of it all. for Portland. So you draft Donovan Clingan, which that's a real bummer because sources had told me that DeAndre Ayton just invested in a custom Posturepedic mattress. And so now he's going to have to up and move that. Who knows? He might be sleeping on the floor or deflated air mattress again in his next home if he gets moved. I've been open that I don't understand teams' infatuation with Clingan. I get like what he's just massive and what he can technically do as a rim protector. I don't see the ability for him to operate in multiple defensive schemes or like do more than just be in drop. And like maybe that's ultimately fine. And if you're going to involve him in some maybe dribble handoff stuff to maximize him, oh god, the Knicks just are going to keep trading picks. They're horcuxing shit, as Zach Lowe would say. I don't see the vision, and it's even more confusing for me. I guess you're not at a point where you should be drafting for fit. So I guess that's fine, but like, are you already out on DeAndre Ayton as you traded him, I think, with the intention of this is like kind of our center of the future prospect. And then, so let's fold this into they obviously have they have another pick here, but let's fold this into, oh no, they don't. They traded it. So they traded their lottery pick along with Malcolm Brogdon and their second most favorable 2029 first round pick, which is they have their own, they have Milwaukee's, and they have Boston's. Or those are the three picks that they technically have right now. So that's not an astronomical cost. And you get Deni Avdija, who's 23 and about to start a 4-year, $55 million extension. We did mention that they need kind of a combo forward or wing of the future. And you could do some really interesting stuff defensively. I mean, think of the offense here is going to be dog shit, but think of Clingan with Grant and Tybal and now Deni Avdija. Like you could just run massive lineups and hope that maybe Scoot or Simons, if that's like your fifth to round out, or you're going to have two of those guys sharp on the floor, and that's how you generate offense. This team is interesting to me. I don't know that I love the idea of you. It feels like you treated part of the value of that trade for Deni Avdija, whom I love and you love. It feels like you treated part of the value of that trade as, okay, we got out of the tax here. And it's like, you couldn't figure out how to do that as like part of a separate deal with Malcolm. I didn't love it. I don't hate it. It's not like they have extra picks in 29 and Deni Avdija fits your timeline. He's really good. He would have gotten most improved player love if the Wizards had kind of saddled him with more responsibility sooner. So I'm open to it, but like, I don't know that all of these pieces offensively, at least, like there's like, I don't like the fit just between, you look at it all right now with Simons and Sharp and Scoot and Avdija and Grant. There's just a lot of like, okay, Simons is the best off-ball player of the bunch, followed by Sharp. And then, it's just, I don't know. It's awkward right now.
Yeah. It's a weird collection of players. It's still a weird collection of players. It was certainly all season and before the draft. And now it's, I guess, just weird in a different way. I don't know. I think just getting Avdija, you win that deal. I'm fine with, like, I think that's as like as in depth as I think I would go with the logic. Although like it's going to be hard to really judge it just as an asset. I think we both love Avdija. We're probably too high on him, but it's going to, who knows like what the rest of this roster is going to look like, presumably after they trade. You know what? Actually, as I'm talking about this, like mentioning Jeremy Grant, I hope this doesn't get a little Pistonsy where it's like, well, we got our young guys. We're also going to kind of just, keep some vets around and try to not be terrible and like sort of have it both ways. And like it went as badly as it can go for the Pistons trying to do that. But yeah, I don't know. I like Avdija. I don't like Portland's overall sort of like whatever it even is direction.
Yeah, I don't like the Clingan pick for them. And it's not that I'm in love with the idea of Ayton or even RW3 long term. I mean, Duop Reith, how could you move this guy down the pecking order? That's just inexcusable. But I don't know. I think part of it, I think what you just made me realize is that because I'm so low on Clingan relative to consensus that I might be, so we'll have to let this play out. However, they don't have to, but like RW3 or Ayton's on the move, right? Like, what is the point of having all three of those guys on the roster next season?
None. I didn't even really talk about Clingan. I'm like, this will be boring because I wish it'd be more exciting if I disagreed with you, but I just like, I don't see it. I don't understand the thinking like of like, let's get, like, I'm not sold. He's got workouts. He's hitting threes, like that kind of thing. And like, he can.
I was willing to Cauley Stein back in the day, folks.
Right. Like, like that's just such, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it. Like the case for him is like, maybe he can be sort of a facilitating big and there's a little more that he can do, but he's still just like, he's a drop center, like, right? Like that's what he is. And he's not switchable, and the spacing is iffy. And so like maybe you just took like a conventional center that is replaceable with a $5 million player, in free agency type of thing. Like that might be what he is. Maybe not, but the player type doesn't make sense to me, especially for this team.
Grant, who went at pick number 8?
So we're back to the Spurs. I'm not going to say Buzelis, even though it's probably who it is. Did they take Devin Carter? That's my guess.
They did not take Devin Carter.
Who'd
They also did not keep this pick.
Oh,
They traded number 8 to Minnesota for my reaction. And before you have to wait for me to hear, because I was ready to kill the Timberwolves, and you can still probably kill them. They traded number 8 to Minnesota for a 2030 swap and their 2031 first round pick. I believe there's top 1 protection on the swap, but the pick itself is unprotected.
wait a minute. So
I'll double check those details, but it's a 2030 swap and a 2031 first from Minnesota. So this will be completed after the moratorium for pick number 8. And then we can get into who is going to end up in Minnesota.
Wait, okay. So what a fascinating trade. So this is the Spurs saying we will have Wembanyama forever. And so getting a piece of the downside of the Timberwolves 7 years from now is a sensible move for us. That's what this is, right? Like that.
I think this is probably not a decision you make if you didn't also have the number 4 pick though.
Yeah, sure. So the Spurs do not get they only got one guy in the lottery is what we're saying, coming in with 4 and 8, and they didn't like use it to trade up or down. They just traded out of that spot. So, okay. So assuming the selection was made for Minnesota, is this Dillingham?
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
On that
So
one.
There's your backup. There's your scorer. There's your.
How do you feel? So I liked it in the moment because I was ready to kill Glenn Taylor, A-Rod, Mark Lore for, wow, did they just fucking trade Towns or Jaden McDaniels or somebody to the Spurs? But what they did was they gave Matt Ishbia something to lube up to, because they traded their 2030 and 2031 first round pick. They're now the second team as of now with the Knicks to have a 2031 first round obligation headed towards another team. I appreciate the aggressive play, but this is a big bet. We all know, especially Wash came on here and touted Dillingham's scoring ability. I have said if he was like 2 to 3 inches taller, maybe he'd be the best player in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I know he's coming in a backup role. How do you feel about this? It's cost controlled, so it does the long term. It gives you some flexibility. And with Mike Conley aging out, like I get it, but you need this guy, and maybe they're going to get a vet in free agency for the minimum. The offseason's not over, but as of right now, they gave up equity that says Rob Dillingham's going to be not just a long-term part of this team, he's going to be an immediate part of this team. And that's interesting to me.
It's really interesting. I mean, I would not have guessed in a million years. So yeah, Phil, we spent plenty of time in the Minnesota offseason look ahead thinking like, what's your, backup point guard's a pretty big need because of Conley's age. And like, you got ideally someone that can score. Like that's Dillingham. I guess it's just from like how, and is he ready now to play 20 minutes a night? Maybe it could be that hot. Maybe not. I guess if you put Ant on the ball, it's going to be like 10 to 15 for Dillingham, but still like you don't do this unless you're pretty convinced that this guy's ready to be your starting point guard in like maximum 2 years, right? Like that's what this is saying. That's a fascinating trade. I will say having that defense there and having Ant is like, if you got it's kind of, if you're going to be able to hide a guy, like that's the spot to do it defensively. Minnesota can do that.
That was just probably the most fascinating move of the night. That does probably spoil everything, but
that's a good one.
We are on to pick number 9, which I can guarantee you are not going to guess. The Grizzlies did keep it for now anyway. And I'm based on the pick, they're definitely keeping it.
Based on the pick, they're definitely keeping it. Well, I don't know what to think about that. So I thought they maybe would take Clingan, but he's gone. It's not Edey. It's too early for that. Although like, Edey. Okay. I'm thinking wing. I'm thinking, okay, this is Buzelis.
No, it's what? Do you want to take another stab or do you want me to just
I'm just tired of you. They did take Edey.
Yes.
Wow. Well, they got a center. I don't know. What do you think about that? It's just like, I mean,
because you have Jaren Jackson Jr., like what Zach Edey's limitations, and so I will say this. I think he's more likely to succeed or look better in more aggressive defensive schemes than Donovan Clingan. Do you think that's fair? And look, I've called myself a weeks old draft expert.
Yeah.
So like, you just have to recognize we're doing the best we can here. Like, if you want to disagree, look, come at us. You'll have the receipts. I've said although the Jazz are pretty low on him right now, I said a lot of the same stuff about Walker Kessler, and he had like one of the best rim protecting rookie seasons in NBA history after that. So I don't know. I like him better than Donovan Clingan, to be honest. And because you have Jaren Jackson Jr., it makes sense. And I think he could probably come in and just play. But I would, if I was the Grizzlies, I guess if you have Marcus Smart and you think he's going to have a bounce back year and be healthy, I probably would still want like a bigger wing then on this team. If that's, I'm going to have Zach Edey playing some heavy minutes here.
I think this is another really interesting one. I do think there's a scenario where he's just like, he replicates the Steven Adams offensive rebounding stuff. And it's just like, that gives them the dimension that they made them really, really good. The last couple, prior to last season, the two before that. And he's super physical. He sets big, hard screens, and like at some point, many executives have erred going down this road, but like at some point, the guy that was player of the year twice, like you just need to, and you're a team that's ready to win now, as Memphis is, and you happen to be picking this high in the lottery because you had like a gap year. I don't hate it. It feels like it's a reach. I'm sure that's how it'll be categorized, but like it kind of makes sense to me now that we've talked about it.
I think with this draft just sort of being all over the place, it doesn't feel as big of a reach to me, but it is interesting that he was picked above like some of the names to come. Who did New York? Who took pick? What did we have at pick number 10
for Utah? Right? They didn't trade it. Let's go, Devin Carter.
Try to trick you. Did you hear me drop the New York name like that?
Yeah, I just thought you misspoke because you didn't really lean into it. I'm guessing Devin Carter.
No, they did not take Devin Carter. They took Cody Williams.
Oh, okay.
He vacillated between on my unofficial big board between number 1 and 3. So I love this pick for them. And he's not really similar to J-Dub, so I'm not basing this off of who he's related to. I've compared him to, I see like a bigger Mikal Bridges is what I see.
I mean, this is a team without wings. So like that positionally, that makes some sense. Obviously, like I'm super high on him too. And I will just admit that like, I don't know, 30 to 40% of that is just because of who he's related to. But the rest of it is just like, I see in watching the film, like the flashes are there of this guy just being the type of wing that everybody wants. He's super thin. I saw his weight is like in the 170s and he's like a good, almost 6'7". So like, he's going to get shoved around a little bit, but like as a developmental piece, like at a position that Utah just does not have. I don't hate that one either. I am surprised now that Buzelis and Devin Carter, somebody else, and Dalton Knecht hasn't gone yet. Those are the main ones I'm surprised are still on the board here.
Well, let's get to pick number 11, who went to the Bulls.
What would the Bulls do? They traded it for the right to extend Nikola Vucevic for 5 more years. It's the first.
Actually, so you're close, but there was an exception. So they're able to extend Nikola Vucevic for the next 12 years.
Okay.
And they did that. So,
perfect. The Bulls took, I'm going to go way down the board here. The Bulls took Nikola Topic.
They did not. They took Modest Buzelis.
Okay. All the way to 11. That's good value. I think there were a lot of people that had him. I tried to get him off the board at like 4. So by definition, I think it's a great pick.
I compared him to just like a better shooting Pascal Siakam. So there are a lot of people that don't like him. You have to believe in his jumper for sure. But I'm torn because the Bulls picked him, which makes me think that it's wrong. But I actually like the pick. I like the prospect a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And it seems like, again, just good value because several mocks had him quite a bit higher than that. Man, the Spurs really thought, well, I guess maybe if the Spurs had kept 8, they might have looked at him, but not to be. Okay, so that takes us to OKC at 12, assuming they kept it.
You're the one who's guessing. So.
Well, how mad? I guess that they kept it. And how mad are they that Jalen Williams? I slipped there. Cody Williams was off the board 2 picks earlier.
I will say, based on this decision, I wonder if they actually would have picked him if he was still on the board.
Oh, okay. So you're giving me a hint. It's not a wing. There are no more big guys that.
Well, that's not. Well, all right. Just
I don't know. I don't know how much longer we can go with this conceit because I'm gonna. It can't possibly. Did they take Knecht?
No.
Well, then I don't know because it can't be a little guard.
Nikola Topic.
They did.
Who did I and because I don't know how much he's going to play coming off that ACL injury, and he's in a situation that frankly doesn't need him right away. I compared him. Do you remember who I compared him to? This is like the lofty comparison. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because of the cadence and like what he does on the ball. And so now you get to develop while watching and playing alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's fucking, I fully believe this is going to end up being a fantastic pick. Cody Williams was my favorite pick of the night. But then this one came through and I was like, I don't know, this might be my favorite pick of the night. And maybe that's sort of the Thunder Riz, like really just being infused in me. But
no, I mean, like, well, I guess you can't really think this far down the line, but like, do you run into the same problems, very different players, but that you did with Giddey, where it's like the best version of this guy's on the ball. This team doesn't have a need for someone to be on the ball. You know what I mean?
Right. I guess so. That is an interesting question here, but they do need, and they didn't trade for them at least yet as we're recording this. And it's still early in the offseason. That's the caveat. You don't know how long Alex Caruso is going to be like just around long term. He's not ball dominant. Ditto for Case and Wallace. He should be around long term, but he's not ball dominant. We've talked about how they need that third guy who can maybe break down defenses. There's a chance that long term, I don't think this necessarily helps the Shai, J-Dub, Chet, let's win a title in the next 1 to 3 years window. But there's a chance that it is this guy as the third guy to go out and break down defenses. Why not?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we always say like, oh, you make that kind of criticism like I did, and then it's like you get into the playoffs and we're talking about the Suns a couple of years ago, and it's like Durant, Booker just aren't enough. They need that third guy. So if that can be said in that situation, oh, you're making a face. What happened?
It's just the reporting on what the Knicks are doing with like literally just between picks number 24 and 26 is outlandish right now. It's just so fucking stupid. We're not going to go that deep. We'll talk about it, but I think we're going to wrap up. I really want to get past the lottery a little bit because there's a pick that I love.
Okay.
Let's move on to pick. What are we on? We are on pick number 13,
which is the Kings. And I think so. A responsible team would be looking at wings here, I think. So I'm trying to find. I keep saying Knecht. I don't want to say him. Did they go? I'm just going to throw one out. Did they take Ryan Dunn?
No.
Okay.
They did not take a wing. They took the 6'2" Devin Carter.
Okay. I mean,
no, not okay. What is this like? What is this pick? Also, Devin Carter is apparently dealing with a shoulder injury. I know, and I think that's probably why he was like fell low. I thought he was probably going to go a little bit higher than this. He was still in the lottery. I get the value play from defense, but just like, is there positional scalability here? And it's just, I know he improved as kind of a shot maker and ball handler, but you're 6'2". And so like, how valuable is this defense going to be? Unless you were planning on moving this pick, which not sources told me, but there was reporting that they were pretty aggressive in shopping it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our favorite wings were kind of off the board here. And so when you're looking at, I mean, you can't right now, but when you're looking at some of the names that went after, it's all right. I kind of get this. So I shouldn't kill that pick as much. And there's like a defensive focus there. So I think you can certainly appreciate it. This is just like, I don't know, we're kind of off to another uninspiring start to the Kings offseason, but it hasn't officially began. They kept Malik Monk. That was important. I just don't, between I know Davion Mitchell isn't like a caps lock key rotation player, but he's on your roster. Now you have Devin Carter, Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox. Like something kind of has to just give here over the course of the longer term.
I think the case for this making sense is like, the 6'2" is okay. So what position is he going to play? What position is he going to guard? Almost a 6'9" wingspan. So that maybe that means you can feel comfortable with him guarding threes and like some, teams that play basically 2 3s as their forwards. Yeah, I don't know. That's really, it is surprising to me. Does that just mean that Kevin Huerter is going to be part of a trade because you're going to thin that guard rotation?
That's what I thought. And if you were going here, because I think people, if you're going to criticize what the Kings were doing, who would you have actually gone with? The two names, Dalton Knecht, I thought would have been interesting. And then you still would have had defensive questions, but at least that's like a wing-sized player. But also, like, I'm not saying he definitely could have played with Sabonis, but this wouldn't have been a bad spot to just go with Kel'el Ware. Like, kind of a stretchy, just big. There are a lot of people that think he can play next to the big on the team that he was drafted to. So not to spoil that. But, so like a little hint there. There's still a lot of offseason. Any Kings fans will say this. I'm not killing them. I know what the defensive like intensity is that Devin Carter is going to bring. I'm just curious. I mean, I don't know. I was kind of hoping that they were going to be one of the teams that made a trade. And also, can we talk about very quickly? And this is actually a good spot to do it. If that's what it cost to get Deni Avdija, like if you're looking at, because I know a 2029 first round pick and a late lottery pick was involved, but like that is like, I was kind of surprised that that's all it took, because
where were the Kings on that? Right. Is that
right? Because when you look at what the 2029 picks are, so you're not getting the best. So like if Milwaukee's future has imploded or Portland still isn't good, and then it's Boston's the other one there, and they're just, even if they eventually have to bust some things up, they should just still be great. I'm like, why wasn't another team in on that? I mean, the Thunder, the Kings, like let's go down the list. Why didn't the Blazers have to offer more for this? Like,
yeah, no, that's a great point. It does seem like it's hard to imagine what the Wizards valued so highly in the package they got that couldn't have been easily beaten by some of those teams you're mentioning.
Do you think it could have been either one of these? We already talked about it, having Malcolm Brogdon there because you had Alex Sarr, or you just think Malcolm Brogdon's going to get us another first round pick, and so we're getting 3 first round picks for Deni Avdija?
I think it's got to be the second one, because like if Brogdon were such a valuable Sage locker room presence, he wouldn't be changing teams every like 18 months. So that's one thing. And the other, it just has to be. And I don't think that's the reason you make a trade like that, even though Sarr is now the most important person in your organization. Like I feel like you go find someone on the minimum that could be like a Sage, figure.
I'm just realizing that we didn't really cover it from Washington's perspective, and maybe I'm biased because I don't necessarily love what they're going to be able to give Deni Avdija opportunity-wise on offense in Portland. As of now, with the current roster construction, I don't know that I would have said yes to that deal if I'm Washington. Like, as of right now, I would have thought there would be better offers. So maybe that says more about how the front office viewed him. But like, look at the extension that he's on.
Right.
Like, that was a little wrinkle that we didn't talk about there. We were on to pick number 14.
Back to the Wizards appropriately here. Okay, so I don't understand. Like, Dalton Knecht has been mocked really, really high several times, so I'm just going to keep saying him until he comes off the board. So it's Knecht.
So I mean, you will be right eventually, but you are not right here.
Okay.
They took Bub Carrington.
Okay.
So Portland took him. We'll be sending him to Washington. We did say that we wanted them to get kind of a guard playmaker type to come in right now. So I don't kind of hate the step. Like, this is just, it's the end of lottery pick. And he's super young. I think he's 18
he's still 18. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just like, if you consider him a point guard, or think that he has the passing ability to be a floor general, like at 6'4", that's fantastic size.
Yeah. I mean, it's the type of thing that, well, I don't know. I mean, like, there's a couple guys I like more. I'm kind of surprised. Okay, good. Bub Carrington move. Like, you didn't see him in most mocks this high, did you? I don't think I did.
In Jonathan Wasserman's final mock, that came out, I think on draft day, he was 15, and he went 14.
Okay, what do I know? Less than.
Shout out. Well, speaking of this, I can't wait to tell you what happened with pick number 15. Okay. As a little anecdote. Actually, I can tell you the anecdote. It was misreported by Hardwood Knox favorite Jake Fisher, who apologized on Twitter. It's just funny because I still think Jake deserves credit for he put stuff out there that's legitimate, multiple layers of sources that other people just don't, because they're being more diplomatic about it, or not. That I feel like Jake is less beholden to his sources or agenda driven, but I guess maybe it opens you up to misinformation like what came out on draft night.
Well, now I don't know what to do with this guess. It feels like it needs to be. Can you tell me who they were misreported to have taken, or that'll ruin
Jared
it?
McCain.
Jared McCain was the report, but it is not him.
Right.
Then it's Isaiah Collier. They reached for him.
No, they went with Kel'el Ware.
Okay.
And there's already talk about maybe him playing next to Bam. I don't know that I love that, but if you believe in his shooting, I don't hate it. Like that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the shooting is a question, right? Because it wasn't always there. Like if I recall correctly, but at least I forget where I saw it, but like a Derek Lively comparison in terms of like he's just going to go get lobs, and even if the shooting's not real, he goes and gets lobs, and he's going to protect the rim and that kind of thing. Yeah, if the shooting's there, like, well, when have the Heat ever had like a regular rotation big that played a lot with Bam that could shoot? Is it like, does Kelly Olynyk count? Like, does
Kevin Love count? I don't know how many minutes he spent with Bam last year.
Yeah, but like a center, even, because Bam is a center, but he's also like he'll guard whatever's moving out there. That's it. That's interesting, especially if the shot's real. That gives Miami a dimension they've never really had. Although we're talking about this guy like he's going to play 30 minutes a night next to Bam and the starters, like probably not, but theoretically down the road.
Number 16, which will be technically the third player who we can count as under guaranteed contract for the Sixers, because you have to sign your first round pick if you're not going to trade it. Maxi's there, Embiid's there. We literally have no idea what else is happening with their roster at this moment.
So is this Jared McCain?
Yes. Nice job.
All right. Get a shooter, get him a shooter.
Right. But I'm just, again, it's at this point, it's you take who you think is the best player. So I'm not going to say, well, you have Tyrese Maxey. But like, this isn't really, I know he's drawn comps to Emmanuel quickly. So I guess in theory, you could play him next to Tyrese Maxey, but then you're small. I don't know what value you're looking for outside the lottery pick. It's just like, I might have taken a stab at just someone who was a little bit bigger, but were they drafting for long-term upside, or were they drafting for fit, or were they drafting for potential trade value?
Maybe they're just thinking about it now. Maybe they're drafting for, this guy has, at least, who knows with any of these guys, but this guy has a signature skill that like might get him on the floor right away. And for a team that just doesn't have bodies, it's like, well, we know one thing about McCain. He's going to be able to shoot. So like, cool. Now we have three players that we're paying for sure next year. I don't know. I'm just glad I got one finally.
Next pick, number 17.
So this is the Lakers.
Is it?
I want to say Bronny James, but they didn't do it. They didn't reach at 17. So McCain's off the board. I would have liked him there too. I haven't said Dalton Knecht in a while. Let's say him again.
You were right.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith, like, just climaxed on air when the pick was made. I actually don't disagree with him. I mean, he wasn't really making a ton of sense when he was talking about it. But they needed shooting, even though the 3-point percentage was fine. JJ Redick was talking about how they need to take more threes. This will help you do that. This is someone who can move around off the ball. I don't know what he's going to project as to be defensively, but I think you could probably get, especially if you still have Rui, you have Davis, you have LeBron, like you can get away with him playing minutes as your de facto 3, if that's how you want. Like if LeBron's your point. So I actually really, they redeemed themselves a little bit from that Jalen Hood-Schifino pick last year, I would say already. And by the way, if you were drafting, I'm not saying why they did this. I don't know that there was a better pick here if you were drafting for trade value.
Probably not. And I don't know that there's a better pick for, like, Knecht is 23. Like if you're looking at like, we might trade Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura and some other stuff for a star, we might need a guy to play. Knecht is like, that's so sort of whatever I think it's just a good pick in general. Cause like he was in the top 10 for almost everybody, I think, or just a majority of stuff that I saw. So to get him this late and to get him on a team that like you said, could either use him as a trade asset or like he might actually just play, pretty solid. I imagine I'm not as high on it as Stephen A was based on your description, but I enjoy it. I feel that it was a good.
That was just like, how we talk, like sometimes I might be a little bit performative with my passion on this to just like, maybe if people are sleeping because my voice is so nasally and we're out here talking about nothing related to basketball in the middle of the podcast. But it was one of the Stephen A, but it was like a positive rant where it wasn't like he was on crack. It was like, oh my God, this dude is going to be the next like Steph Curry, basically. He didn't say that, but So it was fun to watch that. That's the Stephen A. Like, that's why I consume Stephen A. Smith content. As we've talked about how if you have an issue with what he's saying, as long as it's not toxic, like, then just don't consume it. You don't have to respond to it. If you want to mock it, I think that's fine. Like, I don't get those jokes off as much anymore because people seem to take everything so seriously. But I appreciate the Stephen A. performance when it comes to that. He was smitten.
Okay. I don't know how much longer you want to keep trying to do this.
Let's go to the top 20, and then we'll get into the transactions and news that we missed.
So 18 is the Magic, unless they traded it.
I'm going to tell you right now, this is the last pick. And I don't really think, did I have any impassioned responses during this? Maybe the Blazers stuff?
A little bit, yeah.
This is the I guess the pick that will be, and it'll be the final one that makes me legitimately annoyed.
Okay, it annoys you. All right, so then I gotta.
No shade to who they took.
Then they took Kyle Filipowski.
No, they didn't. They did, however, take another forward.
Geez, who did they? Did they take Furphy?
Nope.
Well, I'm out then.
That's it. They took 4-year college player Tristan Da Silva, who shot, in his defense, he was at over 39% from three in each of his final 2 seasons on somewhat okay volume. I just I don't know. Like, you couldn't have taken, I guess, okay, Dan, who did you want them to take? And so it's like, that's a really fair point. You had McCain off the board. You didn't want to take a shot at him. Dalton Knecht's off the board at this point. I hope that they're planning on, I say it like this. I hope that they're planning on playing him, or at least maybe giving a shot to Jet Howard next year, because it's now you have these guys who are like these wing size, or in this case, combo forward player, who in theory can shoot, and you need shooting, play them. But like, I don't know. They're a little bit of an uninspiring pick, but maybe they're going to flip it around on me and say, like, this is a 4-year college player who they will trust to, because teams have this, they get enamored with the idea of like, well, this is someone who could come in. He's had X amount of years of college experience and he can play for us right away. So maybe that ends up warming me up to him. But I almost see this as like the impetus for not being super aggressive. It's like, well, we just drafted this guy who was ready to play and shot 39.5% from three last year.
It's in a similar range, and they're, not exactly alike in a lot of ways, but like it kind of is like the Hawkes pick, except Hawkes went to a Miami team that, is a veteran led, outfit that is going to prize him, being ready to play, quote unquote. And then the Magic are still someone that we would just prefer them to take more shots, I guess. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Like maybe I would have experimented with the Jacoby Walter here. I don't and again, now we're splitting hairs.
Right.
And so, but I'm just like, I guess maybe I was hoping for them to like be reported or linked to a trade or something. So minimal annoyments, but I am prepared to, like I said, eviscerate the Magic if they're not aggressive enough this offseason. Pick number 19. Okay.
This is not Orlando. We just did them. This is Toronto. Can I make 2 guesses? Because there's 2 guys I could imagine here, and I'm definitely going to be wrong.
I'm not even going to let you make one guess. They took, no, go ahead.
Keyshawn George or Ryan Dunn.
No, they took Jacoby Walter. I thought that was a good pick by them as someone who has a team that needed it's weird to say like they needed wings. I remember how we're not that far removed from Project 6ix9ine, and it's just sort of like maybe if they saw what OG Anunoby got from the Knicks, they're like, we're fine without Project 6ix9ine. We good. We good.
We got out of Project 6ix9ine at the correct time.
I thought so far, and I'm actually looking at like the results that we'll cover some of them and I'm going to say that you should go look up the draft results after this pick, and I'll let you go through and see if anything stands out, and we can go through I'll go through some of the trades by that point. This is like one of my favorite post top 10 picks so far. There's like Nikola Topic is up there. And then I guess that's it. Like, I really like this pick for Toronto.
All right. We're way beyond the point where I have anything more than just a cursory opinion on any of these guys. But if you like it, Dan, I also like it.
Pick number 20.
So this is Cleveland. I'm going to say Furphy again.
No, they took Jalen Tyson.
Okay. Out of Cal. I know.
I'm curious to see, they're not a team that's necessarily in a position to give him minutes, but you're coming off basically averaging 20 points and 3.5 assists. And he had over 30 usage. It wasn't on a great team, but I think if like if you buy into him being at this level as someone who can scale into a larger ecosystem, I kind of like that. And like, look, he plays, I don't know if he necessarily has the size. What is he listed as? He is 6'6", but he's an older guy. He's a junior. And he's considered by scouts just a forward. And so it's like, okay, I don't know if I want to play him before in the NBA, but if this is what you're going to use to kind of just deepen your wing pool, I don't have any issues with this pick.
Yeah. Well, what did I get? Maybe I got less than half probably, but I got a few there, especially earlier. Not too bad.
Look, the one that you getting when you got the Tidjane Salaun one, that was the flex.
That was my big moment. Okay, I'm looking down the rest here. I don't know how you want. I've now spoiled the rest of the first round for myself.
Okay, good. So let's get into the trade that there's one trade. So Phoenix traded number 22 to Denver for number 28 and number 56. In that spot at number 22, they ended up taking Duran Holmes II. I don't know enough about him to have any strong thoughts on there. I like the idea of when you're in Phoenix's position, okay, we're going to, I know it's number 56, but we're taking a stab at someone who's just not going to cost us a crap ton if we can sign him and hit on it. And so, and Holmes was billed as one of the guys with a wider draft range. So if you, and I look, the buzz coming out of him at the combine was like, okay, like he was hitting a bunch of jumpers. So you think he can come in and play some 4, play some 5 for you? And look, if you think he can play some 4 or 5 for you, there's probably a chance that he could get minutes right away for you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Looking at Kevin O'Connor's mock draft, he mentioned that Holmes had a promise from Denver at 28. So apparently the Suns swooped in and maybe capitalized a little bit. But yeah, the Zeke Nnaji, it's like he's the guy that they wish, this is O'Connor again, Zeke Nnaji had become. So, we're going to take another crack at it, I guess, with a floor spacing young center.
Another trade, so there were 2 trades that stand out. Is so the Knicks ended up sending they traded number 24 to the Wizards in exchange for number 26 and a second rounder. And then they ended up trading number 26 to the Thunder for 5 second-round picks. And the Thunder took Dillon Jones, another name that I don't know enough about. I did kind of find it interesting that OKC was coming in here. Dillon Jones is 6'5" wing, coming out of Weber State. I did find it interesting that OKC decided, like, all right, we want to get like a first-round prospect here.
Doesn't that automatically make you think that Dillon Jones is going to be good? That they were willing to
they're on that level of just like if the Heat kind of draft them, you're like, all right. And it's the same thing with the Thunder.
Yeah, I'm 100% there. Okay, so ultimately the Knicks gave up 24 and got 26. They kept 25 and selected. I'm just going to try Pacom Dadier, and then end up getting 5 seconds for 26. So they pick one guy and ultimately get 5 seconds out of their other pick. Is that accurate?
I have not seen I don't know if you've been, and I'm assuming you haven't based off the nature of how this has gone. I want to know what the second rounders are. It's just been so far reporting. They span between 25 and 27. So none of them are conveying this year. And so what this does, and maybe this is a good segue, and we'll wrap up the draft stuff, but that'll help their cap sheet. So we could talk about that in a second. Was there anything else standing out to you? I think that kind of wrapped us on any trades that took place.
Yeah, well, yeah, the other side of that Suns Nuggets trade is the Suns end up with Ryan Dunn out of Virginia, who probably is going to play for them a fair amount. And then seeing Isaiah Collier go to the Jazz at 29, that's like, that stands out as like some risk for sure. But Collier was someone that was like, I don't know, a top 5 pick for a minute there before he had a rough season at USC. So, and a guard, a big physical guard who might actually not overlap with Keontae George in Utah. I think that's, in the theory of that, makes sense to me. So the Jazz,
you guessed him a couple times too, I think. So getting him at 29, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they, because I'm the arbiter of like who's a good value in the draft.
I did see Bleacher Report's Jonathan Wasserman skewered the Bucks for taking AJ Johnson at number 23.
Wow.
And that's like, Was is like, when if you make Was skewer you, and maybe they were, maybe it's like typical like clickbait with the handling. But like for Was to not like that pick, sort of like, and I get it, like it's all right. So you just drafted another guard who is, from what like I've read about him, is more like offense first. And so if you have someone, what does he have, a 6'8" wingspan? I guess that's fine, but
Yeah,
I found that interesting that Was did not like that pick at all.
Who'd the Celtics take? I see that. Are they still on the clock right now? The last
No,
pick?
they took Baylor Scheinman
out of Creighton. I know he went to Creighton. That's about all I know out of him.
The first round has been wrapped. And let us know in the comments any standouts, any disagreements you have with us on what we thought for that. Getting into, before we get out of here, we have a few minutes left. Let's talk. I think we need to talk about the Knicks. Although, did we mention, sorry, do you think DeRon Holmes will get minutes in Denver? Or did I already say that?
No, you said that you said he might get minutes there. I'm trying to think, like, if he's who Najee was supposed to be, then he might play over him. I guess I could see it. Because who is it? Just DeAndre Jordan is just still the backup to Jokic,
like Najee.
And Najee. Yeah, I mean, like, I'd say he's got a better than a fair shot at it if that's who he's competing with.
Although DeAndre Jordan's a free agent, so technically, Nikola Jokic's best backup remains Aaron Gordon.
Right. And how often do you want to go to that, like, throughout the course of the year, right? You probably don't want to lean on that too much. I don't know. Maybe this is the year where Denver just does do that because they just don't have another choice. But if Holmes is ready, then I think you're right. He might actually get a shot here.
So the Knicks they traded for Mikal Bridges. I want your thoughts on that trade. We talked about it when we did our BR live stream.
Yeah.
Tuning into those. Nice plug for free agency, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday. Grant and I will be hosting. Rumor has it we'll have guests. We were not asked to find them, so they're just going to be thrown at us, and hopefully we'll have the names beforehand. But go check us out on that. Show some support. You can find us in the Max app.
That's cool. That's cool, right? We're going to be on the Max app. I think that's cool.
I'm at the point where I don't like telling people what I do, because the response is either like, you're so lucky, and we are, but it's like, it leads into so many questions, or it's the people that are like, oh, like, I could really do that. And then they're explaining to you why they could do that.
I one time, it's probably 10 years ago, when after the Turner acquisition, it was during the finals. And then, you know how sometimes on TNT during a game, they actually would put up like a screenshot of the BR front page, and like whatever was on it would be on there. It was something that I had written, and I was still like green enough where I was like, holy shit, this is where it all starts. Like here it goes. I think I might still have it. So that I don't feel quite that way now about being on Max, because but still, I think it's cool.
My moment was ESPN used to have a show. I don't remember. I think she was on a bunch of shows. Michelle Beadle followed me on Twitter, and she still might. And they quoted something I wrote on their show. And I was like, that's the last memory I have of thinking, wow, this is like fucking cool. Like, you did this. That's really cool. And now I'm sort of like, I still do go. I used to, when people would ask me to come on their radio shows and podcasts, I still very much enjoy talking to people. Radio in particular is difficult. I will still say yes when I can, but like, they're never on time. And it's like sometimes you're on hold for like 5 or 10 minutes while they're waiting for the segment to start. I understand it's the realities. I hate how much the industry has like numbed me to what should be the success stories of what we do. So you know what? We're going to be in the Max app.
Hey,
we're in the Max
be
app.
Excited. It's okay.
I don't know. Be excited. Look, maybe I shouldn't be saying this as a employee of the company, but I don't know why they changed the name, but we're in the Max app.
Knicks trade. What? So mixed feelings, I guess. I'm sure, and I did listen to your solo pod, so I know that we are mostly aligned.
The good one or the bad one?
The bad one. I only listened to your worst efforts. And it was fine. You're way too hard on yourself for that. Double intro threw me, but I just powered through. It's fine.
I left the gym. I was so disgusted when I heard it. I was so mad.
Let it go.
Let's talk about this for a few minutes. Go ahead.
So my very first reaction was like, this is fun, because now you're going to have to refresh my memory, because at some point during the Knicks postseason run, I texted you something along the lines of like, the Knicks need to upgrade the talent without like compromising the like spirit or something. Like, do you remember what I said?
I quoted you to you because you didn't phrase it.
And I was like, what genius said that? And you're like, you stupid. Like, I shouldn't. So I forget what the word
was.
What
upgrade. Oh, I remember it verbatim.
Tell me.
Upgrade the talent, preserve the spirit.
Preserve the spirit. Check and check. They upgraded the talent, and like, you may have like augmented the spirit, because it's another Villanova guy. It's another guy that's going to play his ass off. Like, all these guys like each other, like that kind of. So mission accomplished. And like, so you forget for a second all the pick outlays, all the like, what do we want to hard cap ourselves at, first or second apron? Do we lose Hartenstein? All that stuff. Like, it's cool that Mikal Bridges is on the Knicks. I want you to accept that. I know you're like still, I don't know, not fixated, but like considering the costs, which like are ridiculous. Like, this was too much. It's an overpay to give up 5 picks and a swap. And for a guy who has not and probably will not be an made an all-star game, I just like the product on the floor is better. I enjoy it.
For sure.
But this is also maybe why you do a bunch of weird stuff to get a 5 second-round picks in the draft, because like, oh shit, we gave away our draft for a long time. Like, that's a real concern, as are the financial things. Like, if this costs you Hartenstein, which maybe it will, maybe it won't, depending on how they ultimately structure it, then like that's not ideal. But I think I'm like 60-40 positive. Maybe it's even a higher ratio than that, just because what the Knicks showed me during this postseason was like, it's possible to not be a legitimate championship threat and still be very successful and likable and awesome. And I think this just continues to keep them like in that tier with just a touch better shot to actually contend for a title.
I want to get into the finances a little bit, but what did you think about the OG Anunoby deal? 4 years, 5 years, 212.5, excuse me. So below the max he could have gotten. So it's weird where when you look at it in this situation and how you might have to pay players moving forward, I think my natural impetus would be like, you structure it higher and then have it go lower. But because the Knicks are, as of right now, as the trade, they are hard capped beneath the first apron, which is why it comes down to, okay, you kept Anunoby, Hartenstein's gone, but that's why I want to get into what some of their options are now, which I did on the pod. Go check that out. What do you think of just that number, that type of commitment for Anunoby? And what do you think of, you mentioned preserve the spirit. All along, I said, I missed on here. I think I put the over-under on his average. His average annual salary ends up being over $40 million here, but the 5th year wasn't something I counted for. He apparently had max offers on the table from other teams. I will tell you which other teams had those offers. Literally every single one of them would have cleared cap space to basically do it. But he took less to stay with the Knicks. Now, how much of that is the 5th year? How much of that is, you mentioned, preserve the spirit? Is this just infectious? That like, this is part of everyone knows my thoughts on the Mikal Bridges trade. I think it was an overpay relative to knowing you had to overpay, but the fit is unimpeachable. Does it make them more than the second best team in the East, a real challenger to Boston? I don't know. If OG Anunoby's healthy, you can do a lot of different things defensively now, especially if Tibbs is willing to play him at the 5. And I saw someone tweet at me like the psycho lineup, the Villanova psychos plus OG, like that. Hell yeah. I want to see that lineup. So like, what do you sort of make of like that OG Anunoby? Oh, I'm sorry. The thing I wanted to say was, I'm also wondering, because now it's like, okay, OG took less than his max. Maybe he did that for the 5th year, but you got him at less than his max number. That was probably their goal. And now you can start him at, I have it projected at about 36.65 million. It could be 36.6, depending on where the final number lands up. But like, do you think there's a chance, or am I fanning this a little too much, that part of getting Mikal Bridges, and I might have said this in the bad podcast that you listened to, part of factoring that in was maybe Jalen Brunson will be willing to just sign his 156.5 extension?
I not only think that, I think it puts the likelihood of Bridges signing that, what is it,
3-1-13 in 6 months. Would it be hysterical if he did? I think it might actually be worse, because it's only 2 years is what he's eligible to sign for now. But like, it would be a much lower number. But yeah, that's the other thing, the 3-year 113.
I did have that thought of like, okay, I kind of think maybe some of these Villanova guys are like, it's worth it to us to be here in New York, like on a kind of like, iconic is too strong, but like a really memorable team that could go down as like, yeah, you remember that Knicks team? Like, when we talk about like the mid 90s, or just like a team that people will remember and really love and relate to, that's worth more to them than the money. And like, okay, so that's why Brunson would forego like another $100 million by waiting to hit free agency. Related, the Anunoby deal struck me when I saw the 5th year and over 200. I was like, oh, so he's not about that. Like he leveraged the fact of like, you can't let me go because you just gave up all this shit for Mikal Bridges. Like, let's bump it up a little bit. And maybe that's how you get the 5th year, because he got a player option, right? The 5th year's a player option, I think.
But yeah, he got everything but the max. So it's just like, that's no other team could give him the five-year
Right.
max. That wasn't happening.
That's not, to me, that does not seem like a sacrifice to me. So it stands out a little bit. And again, I'm measuring it against like a hypothetical way under market Jalen Brunson extension that has not happened, but I kind of am like, oh, it's definitely going to happen now. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the deal. I guess like that's just what Anunoby costs. And then like you've been on this too. If you do all this for Bridges, you cannot allow Anunoby to leave. And I wonder if like that is the reason that 5th year got tacked on, that you got that player option and got that other stuff. Cause he knew like he had more leverage when they did the Bridges deal.
Yeah. And so and then the fact that he didn't get the max though is part of that leverage. And so now let's get into this. So there's been talk of, would they expand the deal so that they could be hard cap beneath the second apron, and that would make it easier to keep Isaiah Hartenstein, especially with OG Anunoby. Again, I had the lowest starting number, I actually had him penciled in for was 37.5. So this actually brings that down. You've now you got off of one of the salaries of your first round picks. If we're going to, you have Daquan Jeffries, Diakite, and so you have their numbers on their books. I'm just guaranteeing those. If you're looking at 14 cap charges and most of it's guaranteed salary, I have one minimum roster hold caked in there. If you include Isaiah Hartenstein's max, which would be 16.2 million, you have like $17,000 like left in second apron room. And so that makes me wonder, okay, are they trying to expand this? One of the players I mentioned might be going out, or are you just resigned to losing Hartenstein? Or, this is the thing the two things I want your thought on is, would you expand this deal just to up it to the second apron? Which by the way, it's a big difference of having to keep your payroll beneath the first apron checks in at 178.7 about. The second apron checks in at 189.5. So you're talking about $11 million extra in room, basically, to work with when Isaiah Hartenstein's contract. Mm-hmm. So would you expand this deal, include a smaller salary to like make the second apron your hard cap? Or do you look at, because the cost of this team, even if Jalen Brunson's going to sign that extension, even if Mikal Bridges signs that extension, the team is just going to cost a lot moving forward. Do you just say, okay, we're either going to let Hartenstein walk, but we want to be in this first apron territory because we're going to be in second apron territory probably moving forward? Or, and the third layer would be, do you figure out how to keep Hartenstein while working beneath the first apron? And the scenarios there are, you just get rid of Julius Randle. You break him up into a much cheaper player or try to get off his money entirely. Or you can move, I have it at, it's probably Mitchell Robinson. And then I think you could maybe, like, this would be tight, but you could, if you just trade Mitchell Robinson, I think some team with cap space would take him. I don't know if you're getting first round equity for him. I think you would get a first round pick, like from a team that, like Oklahoma City, I think would give you a first round pick if they're, for instance, not getting Hartenstein. So, like, if they're offering him more money, but Hartenstein prefers to stay with the Knicks, I think would you give up a first-round pick if you're OKC for Mitchell Robinson?
Maybe. Yeah, if I'm OKC again, because the picks are different to them. I want to get back to so can I give you my? I have a question, but go ahead and finish. If
the wrap up on that was, you would be getting rid of Mitchell Robinson without taking back any money in return. So you have to have confidence enough to either hit on like very cheap players, or the fact that you just want future draft equity and you think your rotation is kind of built for this, or that Jericho Sims is ready for bigger minutes. But it's basically, if you got rid of Mitchell Robinson, and then I think it's right now one of Jeffries, and it's easy to get, those guys are non-guaranteed. If you wanted it to be Deuce, because you think that you just have enough secondary creation, or maybe Kyle Lowry's coming to join the Nova Knicks party at this point, I think it's Mitchell Robinson and then another smaller number. You could now figure out a way to pay Hartenstein his max, but it's just so tight that it leaves you with very little flexibility, where if you want to work the buyout market moving forward, so you could move multiple players there. But I'm just curious which route you think they should go.
So I'm concerned because it seems too simple to me. So I guess what I would say is, tell me why they shouldn't. This would be my approach. Why shouldn't they structure this deal ultimately so that they are hard capped at the second apron, and then can keep Hartenstein and not have to trade one or two some number of like guys that will be in the rotation? Is it just the cost? Like you're going to get into all these, is that the reason? Like, why wouldn't you just go that route?
I think my thought process here was maybe they just know that Hartenstein has an offer he wants to take elsewhere. Like maybe OKC is coming in at 4.88 or something, and that's just not a number they can compete with. My other thought was, and I kind of explained this before, that while the tax penalties aren't going to be as punitive right now as they will be in future years, you are drumming up your tax payment. And if you don't think that you're getting Jalen Brunson or Mikal Bridges at this massive discount moving forward, by the way, Julius Randle has a player option. My thought process is you're trying to keep the payroll in somewhat check I mean, the thing that I wouldn't rule out is what if you let Hartenstein walk and then you're like, well, how do we figure out how to duck the tax here? Would be something like this team. They would be a salary dump away from doing it if Hartenstein leaves at this point. I don't know what type of message that sends, but like if you just remove the Isaiah Hartenstein, whatever, I mean, how far over the tax are they? I mean, they're still pretty far. No. I mean, like if you pencil in a minimum hold, you're about like within 5 million of ducking the tax. So is it breaking up one of your other, like a Mitchell Robinson into a cheaper player? But at that point, you've now traded both your starting centers. Is it breaking up Julius Randle at some point? So I'm wondering if they're trying to leave open that possibility, or just, again, have a more modest tax bill in advance of new deals for Brunson, Randle, and that's going to be followed by Mikal Bridges soon enough.
Well, okay, another question. Do you think the Knicks have a comparable level of championship equity to the Timberwolves?
No. Look.
And you know why I ask, right?
You're talking about, are you trying to get Karl Anthony Towns there?
No, it's because what we keep saying is if Minnesota is going to try to mess around and get under, and to save money, then get out of the business.
Yeah, I agree. But what I would say is that the Knicks would be doing this to just keep everybody rather than the Timberwolves would actually just be cutting off like some of their legs to do it.
Well, then how far down the road are you thinking about the Knicks payroll concerns? Because it's like, I don't know, think about the next year to 2 years, because who knows what's going to happen after that,
I would be I'm personally team expanded to the second apron. I don't even know if I can, like, you just do that because then it's you get everybody. You have Hartenstein, you have Robinson. It's not getting rid of one of them. The issue there is if you're founding this entire philosophy around, we're trying to be really malleable defensively. Isaiah Hartenstein, Mitch Robinson are very good defenders. They're not super versatile schematically. Maybe Hartenstein, I would say I don't know if he's more versatile than Robinson. Like they're both, for what they are, fairly versatile defensively, and they're both good on defense. But I'm team expanded to the second apron, keep everybody. And you can, by the way, you can always save. Yes, there's limitations, but you can always save money in trades during the middle of the season. It's not offloading someone into cap space type deal. So that's a great point by you, though, is it doesn't matter what I think of the Knicks. If you're ranking championship contenders right now, who are you having ahead of them? I would have Denver still if KCP's back. Boston for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would have OKC ahead of them at this point.
But then even then it's like a debate at that you're already at, like, it's a conversation level after those top two.
I think it's reasonable to say, I don't know if I'd argue it because I want to see what happens with not the Clippers, the Lakers, the Sixers off season. I mean, the Cavs. I want to see what happens with the Magic. But like, I think it's reasonable to say the Knicks are one of the 5 most likely teams to win a title, at least on paper right now. That's easy to say, though, before, again, we go through the bulk of the offseason.
Right.
If that's how they view themselves, then your point is the most important one of all. Why are you not expanding this to second apron? I think you could argue because of how little it takes to do so. Like, you can't step out of your way there with the minimum contracts. Jericho Sims counts as, you can't put multiple minimums, basically, in aggregation. But, like, you don't need to do that at this rate. Like, you could figure out different ways to get there. And because of how, quote unquote, easy it seems like it is, I just don't, like, could you have folded this, like, first round pick trade into this trade while getting off another salary? So you've, like, kind of, not that I was on the fence, but I kind of understood their logic. But the more I'm thinking about it, like, you just made this move. We know how quickly windows close in the league. If you fancy yourselves this level of contender, it's sort of fucked tomorrow. And by the way, you've already fucked tomorrow. You traded a 2031 first round pick.
Sure. Yeah. You've definitely fucked distant tomorrow. But, like, I also think, like, you just can't. I don't know if there's a lesson of the last several years when there's been a different champion in each of the last 6 seasons. It's just like, if you're close, you got to go. You got to take your shots. And like we talk about Boston, like bad things can't happen to the Celtics. Like what if Jaylen Brown rolls an ankle in the conference semifinals and he just, like anything can happen. Like it just, if you're this close, the margin between what the Knicks are and a championship team is really small, like compared to the difference between the Knicks and, I don't know, pick your 500 team du jour. Like it's just so if you're that close to the top, you can't be messing around like just like, well, it's going to be too costly. We got to lose this guy who started for us at, like now I hadn't really considered the possibility of like someone's just out there with a Hardenstein offer that is just like, he would be stupid not to take it. The Knicks would understand, but I don't know who that is.
Is it? It's only OKC, right? Like why would Detroit or Orlando do it? I've seen people float Orlando, and it's like you have Isaac and you have Wendell Carter Jr. Why?
No, Orlando. No way would Orlando do it. Detroit, I don't think.
I hope he goes to Orlando now just to replay this.
Yeah. No, I think it's got to be the second apron thing. I just keep all your guys.
I know you have to go, but 2 quick things. What did you make of the Scottie Barnes extension? It's the 5-year max. It has the potential to get up to, if he's going to make an All-NBA team, or it could be win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. He gets the full 5-year boat from, he gets it from Toronto. It'll be worth up to, what is it? It can be worth up to 5 and 270, but it's actually like, I would pencil it in as it's most likely going to be 5 years and 225 million.
Yeah. Market rate. That's what it costs, like I don't have a lot to add. I think he's justified that relative to his peers that have gotten similar deals.
Do you think Evan Mobley or Cade Cunningham get these same deals
this offseason? Oh man.
I think Mobley gets it. I'm wondering if the regime change in Detroit
might be a prove it thing for Cade,
which is
I could see it. I could see it. Yeah, of the two, I don't know that I'd do it for either of them. Just because I'm really coming around to like, let's just use restricted free agency for what it's for, But
in Detroit's case, you could argue because theoretically they can still have cap flexibility. But in Cleveland's case, it's if you're going to extend Donovan Mitchell, why are you fucking around?
Yeah, that's another team that's like this is the team, like kind of like the Knicks. Just let's get everybody locked up and like let's go. Scottie
Barnes, he would have been my most improved player pick. Had he played in enough games. So
I forgot about that. Yeah, we spent a lot of time this season talking about that. I think I forget. I could have gotten there too potentially. I recall making the argument of like he added a new skill as a shooter, and so that's what swayed me on him.
And then the final thing I want to ask you about Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland. I framed it as I really feel like this makes it less likely that they break up the core 4. Maybe Darius Garland requests a trade and force their hand after the Mitchell extension that we all just expect to come down the pipeline.
Yeah, point. I think that's right. And like, I definitely was, I imagine there's audio of me at some point saying like, you probably gave me a 1.5 over under. And I was like over because Mitchell's gone. They have to trade him and just whoever else, I don't know. But yeah, I think, Atkinson has a losing record as a head coach, but everybody seemed to like him. And he just kind of got run out of town in Brooklyn for the wrong reasons. It seemed like after he kind of was, a big deal in rebuilding them from nothing. Cause they also had, it's not the first time they've traded away all their picks. I do think that is the takeaway is that like you changed the coach. So now maybe all that stuff in that really scathing end of season report on the Cavs was more Bickerstaff related and you don't change the players now.
I think I'm with everything you said. And I actually wouldn't have had a problem with either like James Borrego or Kenny Atkinson here. I think that those would have both been just fine choices. I really do like Kenny Atkinson. I think he got a really shit deal in Brooklyn.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe he adjusted his priors. Like I've heard that he goes less hard now. Remember that piece from Jackie McMullen that he was up at 4 on the treadmill, never left the practice facility. And having been on site a lot during that time, he had like that air about him. So maybe being in Golden State, dealing with more entrenched stars, like that's how coaches grow. So I'm actually a lot higher on this team, kind of standing pat now than I was before.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess now I also am convinced that they are much more likely to stand pat. So that's different.
Would you like to take us out of here unless you have anything else to offer?
No, thanks for indulging this half-baked idea of let's just see if I can guess draft picks.
It ended up being fine. It was just like, I should take a picture of what the setup is here. I don't necessarily like having like 3 screens open, but you
are a master of divided attention though. Like I can only do one thing at a time. I'm not on Twitter when we're recording. I just like can't do it. So I'm always impressed by your. So I'm glad I pushed you. Next time 4 screens and just see.
I'm glad I pushed you.
see how that works for you. Yeah. So everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. It's been a banner week. There's been a lot of Hardwood Knocks content. Thanks to if anybody listened to all of it, God bless you. And if you did that, make sure you've rated, reviewed, subscribed, and told several people to do the same.
Or we have a Discord user who's said that they've stolen people's phones and just subscribe. If you've done that on YouTube and do that.
If you sneak into neighbors' houses like at night and just find all their devices, subscribe that way. If you ride public transit, just, try to do it that, snatch a phone once in a while, just, don't get hurt or anything, but spread the word however you can. Join our Discord, links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. Same place the merch is coming. If we get to 5,000 subscribers, I'm very excited by this.
I'm hoping that I can have them done in time, but we will get there.
Okay. I'm excited about that. That's going to do it. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.